Welcome back to Funky Politics, the hardest hitting political show on the planet. That's right, folks. That's right. Funky Politics. It's powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. I am DC, your host of this wonderful, wonderful program that emanates out of the 80th floor of the KUDZUKIAN Towers here in, I'm on the beach. No, I'm not on the beach because, God help us on that. But anyway, let me get straight to what we're going to talk about today. Look, I say all the time, my fellow Americans, comes the time when we must act, and we must act swiftly. And that time is now. Whether you have prospered immensely or you're pleased with the direction of a country, if all of that is constant with you, please vote November 3rd. Please, please vote. If you like where we're going now, I don't care what you Republican, Democrat, Independent, please vote. However, if you are in the winter of your discontent right now, which a lot of us are right here, you don't know which way is up, or you broke it in a joke. Your reason to live, among other things, demands that you go to the polls on November 3rd and you cast your ballot. This person here, I want to introduce you to right quick. He'll give you a reason. Take a listen.
This is the most important election in the history of our country. I feel that way so strongly. So do you. Joe Biden devoted his entire career to offshoring Wisconsin jobs, outsourcing your factories, throwing open your borders, dragging us into endless, ridiculous foreign wars, and surrendering your children's future to China.
That's funny. He talks about Vice President Biden as though Vice President Biden was leading policy in our country. The last I checked, when he was the vice president, he was the second in command behind the president, which of course you all remember to be President Barack Obama. I don't quite get that, but I know he's got to have some shtick, and that's his shtick, to blame everything on the past administration, especially Joe Biden. And that's fine. That's what he wants to do, whatever. Unfortunately, we don't get to choose our parents, right? So whether we're born with a silver spoon or a dirty boot in our mouth, and I had the dirty boot, and I think they had to take it out of the hospital. But anyway, the response to what's right and wrong, I think as Americans, we have to decide, where do we stand in this COVID-19 pandemic era? Where do we stand in terms of masking? Where do we stand in terms of social distancing? Do we try to kill this thing called a pandemic? And I think it is. But I want you to take a listen to this right quick. Here's Vice President Biden.
The President of the United States said that no longer would we, in fact, provide masks for schools. For schools, pay them to have the mask in school because it was not a national emergency. What is he talking about? It's totally irrational. And look, this is all about one thing, the stock market. He doesn't want to see anything happen. It's all about his reelection. It should be about the American people, and they're in trouble. And if we don't do it, and by the way, his own CDC director contradicted him recently. He said, if in fact you just wore this mask, nothing else but this mask, you would save between now and January another 100,000 lives.
Wear your mask. Let's save those lives. He's right. Dr. Redfield at the CDC did make a point to say, if we were to mask up and be consistent with it, keep those masks on when you're in public, we can save lives. I think it's our job to save lives. If you don't save yours, save a friend, save a family member, save someone you don't even know, but we have to continue to mask up, right? Another thing, finally, they're going to recognize that Black lives actually matter. Whether it's today, tomorrow, 40 years from now, someone in the majority is going to have to atone for the hundreds of years of oppression on Black people. The acknowledgement is a start. Reparations is the goal. That's right. Send me my check. And I ain't talking about $1,200. Reparations is the goal, in my opinion. But outright refusing to acknowledge the wrongs that occurred or comparing our people's anguish and oppression to this virus is just wrong. Check out what 45 and what his AG Barr, Attorney General William Barr, statements they made here.
They're not interested in Black lives. They're interested in props. A small number of Blacks who were killed by police who they can use as props to achieve a much broader political agenda.
And then said this about pandemic restrictions.
Other than slavery, which was a different kind of restraint, this is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history.
Bill Barr's comments were swiftly denounced.
I think that statement by Mr. Barr was the most ridiculous, tone-deaf, god-awful things I've ever heard.
You know what, Congressman Clyburn, I think Congressman Clyburn wanted to say a couple other words, but he called it ridiculous, tone deaf. This is the Attorney General for our entire country, who is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the United States of America, and I think he's doing what he said was tone deaf. To compare the I don't even. It's amazing, folks. You know, to get to something positive today, it's Funky Friday, because if we stay, we're gonna have to call this something other than Funky Friday, and it's got an F in it, but that's all right. But to get to the show, I want to bring in a young man, Richard Wilkes, who is originally from Memphis, Tennessee. The brother had this concept that he could start a business. Wilkes Wing Sauce. His passion was to do something for the palate, to do something for his people, do something for himself and his family. And this young brother has started a business that's thriving. It's located in Nashville, Tennessee. I want to give him an opportunity to talk about building a Black business. How do we recruit more young Black men and Black girls into this particular area, this platform, so they can see what it looks like to be able to not have to rely on a 9-to-5 or an 8-to-5 or sometimes an 11-to-7 or 3-to-11. But I think it's important that we also talk about Black excellence. And this is one of those pieces where I believe we take it to another level. So the brother is actually CEO of Alpha Products LLC, and I mean, he's a real brother. He's a noob. He's a noob, and he ain't no brand new. He's a old head noob out of UT Miro. Shout out to Miro and all the boys up there. We're gonna bring him on in just a second, right after this commercial.
Hey, I'm Howard Robertson of R&R on Sports. Have you heard our latest show?
Back with us on R&R on Sports, NBA champion, Brother David West. Welcome back to R&R on Sports. Our good friend, Brother Robert Scoop Jackson. Welcome back to R&R on Sports. My brother, the Grind City Media senior editor. Mike, welcome to R&R on Sports.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, man, and I hope you guys are safe.
Get the updates by downloading the KUDZUKIAN app in the App Store or on Google Play.
KUDZUKIAN.
First of all, shout out. What's up, Noob? How you doing there, Brother Wilkes? You all right?
Hey, how's it going, Don? DC, how you doing?
And I'm doing all right. Yo to you, brother. Hey, look, I'm glad you're here with us today, so we can. This is Funky Friday, and it's Funky Friday all over the world today. Somewhere, somebody's drinking something, and it's probably not any water, or it's probably not coffee like I am, but we'll get to that later on. Brother Wilkes, I want to start this thing off talking about the journey. How difficult was it? And we're going to talk about Alpha Products in just a second, and how you came out with this wonderful sauce, man. That's got everybody's palate going crazy around this area here. Let's talk about the journey, man. How difficult was it to get to where you and the fam are now with regard to starting this business?
Well, I must admit, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I would be remiss if I didn't say that to you. But it was a bit of divine intervention as well as serendipity, if you will. I actually developed sauce out of being bored with just regular sauces that I would get when I ordered wings from my favorite restaurants, and being a huge fan of football. Football and wings go together. So one day I was just messing around in the kitchen, thought I would kind of concoct my own sauce. One thing led to another, and my family members are like, hey, I think you need to kind of bottle this and start writing down your recipes. I kind of shrugged it off at first. Sure, your family, and at the time, my girlfriend, my wife and I were not married at the time. Sure, they're going to say nice things. Sure. But it wasn't until I started to compete in different festivals, and I started to get positive feedback, that it kind of dawned on me, hey, Richard, you pretty much, you have something on your hands. And that's when the journey started. So to your point, the difficulties started to come in. Of course, startup capital with any small business. Having startup capital to kind of help you catapult or go through some rough times is very essential. Having the right connections, contacts, people to help navigate you through some of the hard times. and I would say an overall general understanding of the market and the industry, knowing where to identify pitfalls and opportunities, understanding those things out the gate can pay huge dividends. And those were some of the challenges that I had out of the gate.
Well, I want to stay right there because you didn't just begin this journey with Alpha Products, and then of course with the Wilkes Wing Sauce. I mean, you had a humble beginning. You went to a fine institution in Memphis called White Station University. I mean, some people call it high school. We call it the university at White Station. And later on, you went to UT. I guess my question would be: is there any of those school relationships that helped get you to that point where, let's just say, maybe there was a buddy in the dorm there, you was whipping up some stuff, man, for you and the girls, and all of a sudden they said, man, it's all right. Just like you said a moment ago, folks at the house said the family go always talk about, hey, your stuff is great. Yeah. What about those connects that you made at White Station and those connects that you made at UT?
Oh man, White Station is near and dear to my heart. My primary or grade school included Dunbar Elementary. I'm a product of the Orange Mound community. Yes. Marion G. Evans Elementary, and then White Station, where I progressed from junior high to high school. UT Knoxville, as you mentioned, where I earned my undergraduate degree, and then on to earn my MBA from Keenan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Of all those experiences, and they all were excellent. I met great faculty, professors, classmates along the way. But White Station is really where Richard Wilkes started to understand his potential. And it was due to some caring teachers and administrators, led by Donald Coffey, the principal at the time.
Shout out to Mr. Coffey, man. He was there when I was there.
He was a very, very strong visionary and a strong leader. But I must mention my favorite teacher among all of my educational background.
Let me guess.
And that would be Mrs. Olivia Coleman. She was my Spanish teacher.
You know, that's my church member.
Along with Mrs.
That's my church member, Doc.
Mrs. Coleman, busy, baby. Mrs. Coleman, along with the counselors there, Mrs. Hudson, Mrs. Reed, Mrs. Durham, they saw something in a little kid from Orange Mound. They saw potential, and they poured into me and they pushed me. I'll give you a story. The first time I ever got on an airplane, the first time I ever rode an airplane, it was because Mrs. Coleman helped me win a scholarship.
Wow.
For a scholastic scholarship to study in Europe. So here I am, first time ever getting on a plane from Memphis to Europe. She poured in me, as well as the others that I mentioned, to understand that I had something in me special, and that if I pursued academic excellence, there would be great things down the road for me. So outside of my faith and family, White Station plays a huge part in who I am today. And ironically, my class, we're celebrating our 30-year reunion this year, class of 1990.
Wow. And you know, you say people like Mrs. Coleman wasn't there when I was there, and I was there just a few years before you were, graduating in 85, but I had Grace Milburn. I had, God help me, I had, Miss Ruth Spraggins, who, Ruth Spraggins was her and Mr. Willie Terry and Grace Milburn were the reasons I ended up at Tennessee State University. Otherwise, I was going to go to Memphis, and then of course I came back home to Memphis, but they were the reason I got that HBCU, that yearning, right? So how important do you think it is still today? We talk about classrooms, and I know you've got a child, and I've got two. They're old now, of course, but how important is it for those Black teachers in the classroom to still be there, especially Black males? Like I saw Mr. Willie Terry, and God rest his soul, Willie Boyd. Mr. Boyd was my guy. He was a Sigma great man, man. I can tell you right now, he's a great mentor. How important is to have those Black teachers still in classrooms to help you build a Richard Wilkes or a John this or Daryl this, to make sure that they can get out into society and contribute?
It's greatly imperative to have that, and I think you can even parallel that with what we're seeing with police brutality. Yeah. The more you understand a person, their background, and their environment, you can kind of discern whether this kid is just acting out, he's having a bad day, or if there's something deeper with it. And with that discernment, you can steer and navigate that person onto the right track, as opposed to immediately making an abrupt, prejudged opinion about him or her, which could eventually lead to fatality. To your point at White Station, and as I mentioned, those individuals you mentioned saw something not only in me, but a lot of my classmates, and would take the time and pull some of us aside and say, hey, I know your parents. I know where you come from. This is not representative of you. I challenge you to get your act together and would work with them. That's why not only myself, but if you talk to any of us from my class, there is White Station is near and dear because of those things you're saying. Teachers cared, not just that you made good grades, but that you were a good citizen, both at the school and in your communities. And that's, I like to hear that. Once again, I'm a product of that.
Yeah, same here. And of course, being a poor black kid, black male in a school that was dominated by primarily white, well-to-do students, for the most part, we were a very big minority, right? We didn't have we didn't drive to school like some of those other kids did,
Right, exactly.
I had a classmate of mine that drove a Cadillac to school. I'm like, okay, well, whatever.
I had classmates, and we're talking white and black and other ethnicities who were well-to-do and had their last names carried weight. Sure. Well, the Wilkes name didn't carry weight. And to your point, I had classmates who were driving BMWs or Porsche to school. But that was the beauty of White Station. It was a diverse melting pot. And that's what I want for my son, to be in an environment, a learning environment, where he sees people from different walks of life, socioeconomic backgrounds. And the common thread is that we are all striving for the same thing, to reach our potential as a person and to provide what's best for our families. That's the common thread, regardless of your background.
Sure. And I want to get that foundation that was laid at White Station, then transferred on to UT. Then you're sitting there in Nashville and you got this wonderful idea. But let's talk about Wilkes Wing Sauce in the market segmentation piece of this thing. I mean, you're in a league with the big boys, man. I mean, it's like, let's call it what it is. I mean, you ain't just in something you found by yourself all of a sudden, right? So you're in a league with the big boys. How have you all been able to expand the business? Have you been able to get outside the markets in the metro area? Are you looking at other areas in terms of getting this? And then, of course, I'm sure you have a digital platform too, right?
Correct. Yes. My sauces, you can purchase them online at www.wilkeswings.com. And we're riding the halo effect of buy local, the small business owner. So we're riding that halo effect. We're a Pick Tennessee product, a program initiative by the Tennessee Department of Agriculture to promote small businesses and products like mine. And to your point, the market is dominated by the big boys. But my business model is, the unique thing about this great state of Tennessee is we border 5-6 other states.
That's right.
And because I've lived in every corner of the state, I'm familiar with it and I've promoted my product there. So my overall business model is to win the Memphis, the Nashville, and the Knoxville markets, and let those commuters who reside in those areas or work in that area spread the good news about the sauce to Kentucky, to the Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabamas, Georgias, the neighboring states, in hopes of catching the attention of maybe a huge retailer, someone in the restaurant or food service business, and build from there. I also reflect on my time as in CPG marketing at PepsiCo's Tropicana. My day-to-day responsibility was to look at buying or purchasing data from across the nation. And what we would find out is, in certain pockets of the US, there were small brands that were chipping away at market share. And it amazed me how some of these big outfits would just go in and make an offer that those small companies couldn't refuse, to either incorporate that brand into their portfolio or just get them out of the way. So once again, riding that halo effect, that business model of trying to disseminate with grassroots approach to the neighboring states here within the Southeast region, and hopefully gaining the attention of one of those big outfits. I'm saying prayers and crossing my fingers that one day somebody will pay a lot of attention to the Wilkes Wings brand.
Well, let's talk about the big boys, and let's talk about those venture capitalists that are out there. I want to go back to the piece you mentioned earlier about capital. So if the working capital is there right now, even in this pandemic piece has really done a number on small Black businesses. You've got businesses that have been around for some years that have had to close. I mean, you even think about a barbershop. Think about before they loosen those regulations. You're talking about a barber who is on a cash basis, basically, who cannot do his or her wares in their shop that they're paying MLGW or whatever the national power on for 4 months.
Yeah.
How does a small business make it? And of course, there's COVID money out there, but some of those dollars were not getting filtered down to those small business owners.
Right. It's difficult because without a pandemic, life expectancy of a startup company is anywhere between 3 and 5 years, if that long. If you can make it to the third or the fifth year, that's a major milestone. Once again, without any outside pandemic, you add the pandemic to it, and yes, you're right. It's difficult to make ends meet, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses have had to close shop. The market that I play in, it's been a bit fortunate in the sense that from a food service and or your general retail channels, I'm seeing some restaurants who are surviving are actually thriving because they are seeing more customers come in and their cost is reduced because they don't have in-house, they're not catering to in-house eating. So it's basically, as if they're running a drive-through operation, which minimize their costs. So I'm actually seeing an uptick in sales in that regard. Now, from the regard of people staying at home, cooking more, they're missing their wings. So they're trying to replicate what they would get at their favorite restaurant. And that's an opportunity for Wilkes Wings. And actually, I leverage this opportunity by reminding people that, hey, if you can't get your favorite buffalo wings, or you're now, cooking more at home, why not have that same or even better taste with Wilkes Wing sauces? So the area that I compete in, we're actually seeing some promise or some opportunity. But in other sectors, other businesses, other products and services, it's been brutal, to the point where a lot of small Black businesses have had to close shop.
You've been doing this since about 2010. I read on your website, and you started, like you said earlier, with festivals and people getting a taste of that sauce. And I even read somewhere where a guy said, "Hey, look, can I get the sauce without the wing on?" I'm like, "Now wait a minute, now hold on, now this dog, give us move. Is it that good, Richard? Is it really that good?"
Oh yes, I'm a believer.
Wow.
I'm a bit of a pessimist, and as I told you at the beginning of the interview, that of course I shrugged it off when I first developed these sauces, that of course family and friends are going to say it's good. But when you have an anonymous person who doesn't know you from the man in the moon, stand in line and shout that out, "Hey, I want some sauce with no wings on it," or some sauce with no chicken on it, it's kind of like, hey, I have something. Even before then, my entrepreneurial venture started with being a franchisee of a Lenny's sub shop. That's what brought me back here to Nashville. Okay. And the franchisor allowed us to have different items on our catering menu. And that's where I really started to test the sauce on my Lenny's catering menu. And the FedEx ground operation here in the greater Nashville area would order catering. I would cater for them. And it got to the point where they started to tell me, if we can't order your wings, we don't want your sandwiches. So once again, that's something that would stick in my mind that, hey, people are asking and there is a demand for your sauce. You need to put the pedal to the metal and get this out to market.
So is that why you necessarily left the franchise piece of the business and you went over to and said, hey, look, I know I got something that's hot, because these folks are telling me, I mean, I got a cousin of mine down here in Memphis who is killing the game on hickory smoked chicken salad. Yeah. He's taking this thing to a whole nother level, Alex Farms. And so is that one of those things, man, where you say, you know what, I got something, I got to do it. He worked the job 20 years. He said, I'm going to quit. God's been with him the last 4.5 years. He has been doing this thing, man. And he's been doing well.
Yeah, it's those types of comments, that type of realization of demand that will start to set your trajectory, your path, your destiny, if you're willing to put in the work, have the faith, and go forward. With the franchisee standpoint, I realized also that in order to really build wealth, you need to have multiple stores. I only had one. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I gave a lot of my time and talent to my staff. But to your point, when I started to see that, and I realized that if I cannot purchase additional franchisees or franchise locations, then I need to probably exit this and focus on the sauces, and that's exactly what I did.
Was that a hard decision for you and Bethany to make, to say, hey, look, babe, I know you had all this security, possibly insurance, but I think it's time for me to go ahead and do something different. But that is a conversation you have to have, though, correct? And say, hey, we're in this thing together. And I know you've been eating these Lennon sandwiches, but now I think we need to just start eating some, maybe some extra wings.
Yeah, because when I started this, I was a bachelor. Yeah. Bethany and I were dating, and eventually we got married. So my priorities changed. And I salute all spouses out there who support, their wife or their husband who's going this entrepreneurial route. Because to your point, there are some lean days. If you have to sign a check to pay payroll, there are many nights I tell you, DC, I pray, God, please let this check clear. There are a lot of peaks and valleys that you don't necessarily have to experience if you're in corporate America, where things are a bit more secure. So I'll tell anyone who's looking to go into entrepreneurship, don't be blinded by the glitz and glamour or what you see someone who has quote unquote made it. Take a look and see that journey and see if you're ready for it, because it's going to be a lot of long hours, a lot of hard work, and a lot of patience.
I tell you what, Richard, let's take a quick break. I want to give you a good minute to get you a couple of seconds, get you a water or something like that. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, because we want to talk about some more about COVID and the effect on Alpha products, and how do we move to another sector when we can bring a lot more boats in? How do we get those young Black men who are probably challenged with going to work in these corporate areas, right?
Right.
I mean, they can't. Some of them have records. Let's talk a little bit about that, and also Black Lives Matter. How that does matter to a Black business owner who sometimes is in areas that have been damaged because of violence. Right.
Right.
We'll be right back in just a second with my good brother here, Richard Wilkes, right here on Funky Politics.
Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, one and all, to the little show that we like to call Black Nerd Power, BNP if you're nasty. I'm your host, Mr. Richard Douglas Jones, and with me, the co-hosts of Black Nerd Power, Mr. Marcus Seabury.
What's up, my nerd?
Oh, nerd, please. And Ms. Kimber. What's happening, man?
Hi.
All right, first, here is the rage figure.
I love his helmet.
Talking about escapism and like, yo, I'm mad, but I'm tired. Like, is it okay that, like, if instead of going out to protest tonight, I want to sit and watch a movie? I'm just like, hell yeah, it's fine.
A quote unquote woke romance that features a character that's not being like objectified for her body, that does not necessarily mean that that book will not have sex in it.
And I think on that note, we're going to end the show.
KUDZUKIAN. Download the KUDZUKIAN app, available on Android and iOS.
And we are back with more of Funky Politics and my very special guest, Brother Richard Wilkes, the founder, CEO of Alpha Products and the Wing Sauce Guru. I'm gonna call you the Wing Sauce Guru, the King of the Sauce is what this segment's called, King of the Sauce, man. We're very proud of you, the work you're doing, and I know that making the sauce is not Richard Wilkes. I mean, it's something else. It's a whole lot of other ingredients that were thrown in here, right?
Right.
But we also got to talk about the piece of how do we get more young Black men that look like you to understand that this is probably better for you to do. You get your independence. You're your own boss. We always talk about we want to be our own boss. We want to run our own stuff. How do we recruit those guys? How do we get those and young women, young Black women, and other women of color involved with being entrepreneurs?
Well, exposure. We often hear, and once again, I'm a product of Orange Mound community, and often we hear in communities like that, our young Black men feel as though if it's not sports, entertainment related, there's really no avenue to build wealth or build a legacy, both for their family and their communities, which is totally false. So I would think exposure, and that's what I try to do, is pay it forward, because there are people that I've seen that did it, and I want to demonstrate to the generation that's behind me that it's possible. And also kind of put my money where my mouth is. My wife and I, our family is huge in education, whether, supporting our alma maters or creating scholarship opportunities ourselves to build education. That's what we do. And I also reflect on when I owned my business. I think you mentioned how sometimes our brothers and sisters may have made some mistakes in the past. They have marks against them, and people kind of pass on employing them. I had that opportunity when I owned my franchise. There was a young man who applied to work at my restaurant, and he told me up front, as the application asked, do you have any felonies? And he kind of gave me the spiel. Now, the training, would tell you when you're hiring to kind of look at that with a fine-tooth comb, and if you could pass on to bring in another candidate to do so. But I saw something in this young man, and I said, I'll give him a try. I tell you, DC, he was the best employee, one of the best employees I had. Wow. I gave him a challenge. I gave him instructions on, an area, what we call the back end part of the restaurant, and I gave him full authority to kind of manage that, and he did an exceptional job. And when I saw the restaurant, he was telling me how he had opportunities elsewhere, I believe, to be promoted to a manager. He was actually working 2 jobs, but he was hesitant. He was skeptical. And I could tell it was because he was afraid. And he basically admitted to me he's never been in a position to be promoted or to be thought of in that way. And I told him, I looked him in his face and I said, hey, don't be afraid to be great. And I just kept repeating to him. That's a motto that was instilled in me, and I would like to instill in younger generation. Don't be afraid to be great. When that opportunity comes, regardless of the mistakes you've made in the past, don't be afraid to be great.
You're preaching, Doc. You're preaching. And see, to me, knowing that you came out of Orange Mound, and I know the community grew up around Orange Mound, was afraid to go to Melrose High School, so they sent me to White Station. But anyway, there's a whole nother show there, Doc.
That's another show.
It is Funky Friday here on Funky Politics. But I got an area suspension at Sherwood Junior High, and that guy, the hearing officer, said, well, I'm going to send you to Melrose. I said, sir, please don't do that. If you send me back to Sherwood, I'll be okay. And he did, and things progressed from there. But Melrose is a great institution, by the way. It's an anchor, or the anchor, in the Orange Mound community, and I don't want to downplay that at all.
My entire family basically graduated from Melrose. So shout out to the Golden Wildcats.
Yeah.
So if you look at our photograph gallery in my extended family, you'll see all of this maroon and gold, and then all of a sudden, boom, my splash of Kelly green. So I get ragged all the time. I get harassed all the time at family functions because I'm a bit of an outcast.
Well, you sound like me. A lot of my friends were graduates of Melrose and places like that. And it's, oh man, you just couldn't hang over there. No, you're right. I couldn't. I stayed away. You know, we get back to that family support piece. I know your wife grew up around her and her mom being an educator over at White Station. But how you got to reinforce with us how important it is to have that support network of family, because there's going to sometimes be folks when you start a new business, everybody ain't getting paid, but I need you to hang in there with me, because I'm sure there's some days and weeks that you went without you getting a check, but staff had to be paid. Am I right?
Oh, definitely. When I had my restaurant, my salary was probably $10 a week.
But all the sandwiches you could eat.
And all the sandwiches I could eat. And you're right, it takes a special spouse to allow you to chase your dreams. So kisses to my wife, Dr. Bethany King Wilkes, and the number of family and friends who have supported me in my dream. I tell you, I would be lying if I told you there were some days that I just wanted to quit. It's tough, especially if you didn't come from,
a lot of money. Call it what it is, Doc. You didn't come from a background with a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money to fall onto if you fail, right?
Exactly. So there were days that I was like, I just want to quit. But thanks be unto God, man. He placed people in my life, and people that I didn't even realize who were watching, that would say, just out of the blue, come up to me, hey, don't give up on that dream. You got something. You got something there with that sauce. Church members, just out of the blue, ask. I'll tell you even this quick story. My wife and I attended the wedding of one of my close friends from graduate school. And of course, we had a bit of a mini reunion. And one of my classmates from Keenan Flagler met my wife for the first time. And as we were departing, she pulled her aside and told Bethany, hey, stay on, Richard. Don't let him give up. He has something special. And my wife confided in me and told me that. I didn't realize it happened. But that meant so much to me because it lets me know I have people cheering for me.
You have cheerleaders out there, right?
You, man, that's just as valuable as having those deep pockets, people who believe in.
Yeah, man, I tell you that, man, this just talking to you and hearing the depth of you. I'm getting the faith. I'm getting all of this out of you. The training you put it. You got an MBA. You got an BA degree, but sometimes those degrees can't get you on top of your game. You got to have something still within, right? I mean, so those young brothers and sisters who are out there who want to start a business, don't worry about that. You don't have a bachelor's degree in business management or marketing. If you got a yearning to do something, do it, right, Richard? I mean, you just did it.
Right. I believe in my faith. I'm a Christian by faith, and God gives us each gifts, talents. It's a matter of, at a young age, helping our children identify those talents and then nurture them to develop those talents and give them a platform to attempt, try, fail, get up again, and do those things. And it's not always centered around money. It's time and encouragement that can build an immense amount of confidence in a person that will help them soar to reach their apex. So I can't emphasize it enough, the importance of pouring into our youth, our communities, and showing them that you don't have to come from a background of prominence or wealth. God has given you a talent. Obey him, leave the consequences to him, and reach your apex.
You talking like a faith walker, man. You talking like a faith walker, Doc. That's all I got to say about that. The pandemic. we're gonna go back to pandemic again. This thing has killed the festivals. I mean, there are no major gatherings. God,
Right.
man, I know you guys. We miss Southern Heritage Classic down here, which is a huge boost in terms of economics for Memphis community. I mean, we're talking about a $21 million infusion of cash into Shelby County and their surrounding areas with just that. Homecoming, Tennessee State's homecoming won't be. The John Merritt Classic won't be. There's so many things that won't be in the shift now, though, Richard, the shift that you've had to make, building up that digital piece of your business, right? Just building that. And I think we talked about this a little earlier. Has it or can it sustain you until you get back to where I can still go around the country a little bit, do a few of these festivals, and people are going to say, hey, that sauce, I got to have it, Doc.
Whether we have the coronavirus or not, if you don't have a digital presence this day and age, you're irrelevant. The beauty of the digital age and the technology we have now is that I can be a small business owner with a very small staff, a staff of one, if you will, but still portray or give the impression, and the market reach I can have is tremendous just because of a digital presence. So that's one thing I would highly advise anyone who's starting a business. Make sure that you have a online digital presence, regardless of what you're selling, because it's a matter of exposure and people becoming aware and abreast of your product and or services. So I was so, let me take a step back. When I was in graduate school, I'm kind of dating myself. I think you introduced me as an old head, and you're absolutely
We know you
right.
young, Doc. You young. Look at this gray hair right here. I got some gray hair older than you, but go ahead, Chief. Go ahead.
The primary way that you could gain or place your product out in the public was on TV ads. Well, with with now having YouTube and the different social media platforms, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a TV commercial. You can have a huge presence and following on YouTube that saves you money, but gets you so much exposure. So I mean, I can't emphasize enough the importance of e-commerce and having a presence, a digital presence. That's imperative.
Is that the UNC emphasis Flagler School? Is that where you got that piece that said, look, digital is the way of the future? Is it just something that basically you just figured out, hey, look, we've got to shift. We've got to shift because people, it's expensive to get in the Nashville market on TV. It's mighty expensive. It's expensive in Memphis. So this YouTube place that puts me all over the world, right? With fractions, I mean, pennies on the dollar.
Right, exactly. I saw it both at Keenan Flagler as well as my career path being in product marketing. From Keenan Flagler, I was there from the years of 99 to 2001. And a lot of the things that we see now, be it Facebook, be it YouTube, be it all of these social platforms,
in the development stages, right?
They didn't exist, but they were on the horizon. And our professors challenged us to think, what are some things that are going to change the world? And those were some of the platforms that we were trying to think about and envision and what type of impact it would have on the overall market. Fast forward into my careers and the different positions I held, it's imperative now that I'm witnessing with companies to have a presence on YouTube. YouTube is slowly taking the place of owner's manuals. People don't necessarily want to read an owner's manual on troubleshooting anything. They go to YouTube and see a two-minute, clip on how do you troubleshoot this product, this appliance, this new gadget that you bought.
Tutorials, yeah. That's right.
You see some of the Apple products don't even come with an owner's manual. If you want to know how to troubleshoot or operate a particular device, you go online. So once again, having an online presence, if you're in business, it's imperative. And that's something that I urge small businesses to do. If you have any additional funds, if you have networks, find someone who is very proficient at web development or the intricacies, ins and outs of online
Social
presence
media.
and connect with them.
I want to stay right there with the business piece, because this is a question. It's a funky question now, but it's one that's got to be asked. President Trump talks about, I call him 45 on this show. So 45, and that's either Coke 45 or Coke 45 that you shoot with. One of the two. It doesn't really matter at this point. The president talks a lot about the fact that he's done so much for the blacks. Well, he's done so much for black folk, right? He says, "Oh, I've come up with this criminal, okay, and then I've also done a lot for the HBCUs." In terms of being a small black business in America, in the market that you're in, has the policies or the national policies been more beneficial to you than maybe some of the regular, local or state level?
I can't say necessarily more beneficial, but if you look at it from any business standpoint, be it a small business or a large corporation, when you start talking tax cuts for businesses, that helps any business.
Yeah, let's call it what it is. I want to give him credit now. Understand, there are some things that he has done that's okay, that's pretty good. There's a whole bunch he ain't though, right?
Right. I mean, the CARES Act, I mean, it's a reaction. I wish that our president and his staff would have taken more of, a proactive approach with regards to the coronavirus, as opposed to a reactionary approach to it. But to your point, there have been some things just from any business perspective. If you look at tax cuts and assistance to small business, yeah, you would say those are beneficial. I'll go as far as saying this. When President Trump began his campaign, he had a message or platform just in its pure, the pure overall message of it would have resonated with all backgrounds. When you look at a strong economy, low unemployment rate, strengthening domestic industry, border security, business acumen, or bringing in a business acumen as opposed to the traditional politics of DC. Just that on its pure face, it perks the ears or rings in the ears of everyone. But when you start to add the shenanigans, when you start to add the, dividing the country and then pandering to a certain demographic and excluding others, he pretty much undermines all of that. So to your point, there's some things in theory that President Trump has talked about that would benefit all of us. But I don't think he can help himself. Oftentimes he does things from a shenanigan standpoint and just things that are not presidential that undermines all of that.
Well, then I guess is it the messenger or is it the message? Because the message sometimes, not these rallies, signing the agreement with the UAE and Israel and so forth. I mean, he believes that that's a game changer. If it was not the UAE and if it was, let's say, Afghanistan or somewhere else, I mean, I would say, okay, Iran, we're talking about a major, major deal. Some other issues out there. You're talking about, well, I injected a lot more money into the HBCUs. I moved that office back to the White House. Yeah, but the same dollars that you recommended were the same dollars from previous years. So, and I guess my question to you is, from a business standpoint, from a person, a voter, is it the message or the messenger that really gets us with this guy?
I think it's a bit of both. But if I have to choose one or the other, it's the messenger.
Yeah.
It's his character that I think rub a lot of Americans the wrong way. But surprisingly, his message resonates with a lot of his constituents that they overlooked. They overlooked the messenger. They overlooked those character flaws. So for me as a voter, it's just as important to have an upstanding character. You don't have to be perfect. No one is perfect. To couple along with your message. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes he sabotages his message that would resonate with all Americans with some of the things he say and do. And for me and a lot of voters, that's a turnoff.
Well, now, Richard, one thing I did hear you say earlier, and you had that in. I felt that from you, and I think you and I we're both faith walkers, right? But
right.
There are other faith walkers out there. There are other Christians out there who believe very strongly in their faith, right?
Right.
But they have some kind of way decided that no matter what my faith says, I'm still going to support this particular. So now I'm wondering, is it something other than faith? Is it race? I mean, this is funky politics, and I'm gonna call it what it is. It's got to be race. It's got to.
That's $1 million question, and I've had so many conversations with fellow Christians, other people of faith, and that's when it baffles me, because whether you want to look at it from a slogan standpoint, WWJD, what would Jesus do? Yeah. Would Jesus be pleased with the message that he preached while here on earth? Would he be pleased with overlooking some of these character flaws that I'm mentioning? And in no way do I want to crucify, the president, because there's a Bible verse that warns us about, the parable of the wheat and tare. It's not my job to pluck up, the tare. I leave that for God, because in doing so, I may mistakenly pluck up wheat. So I don't want to do that. But hey, the Bible also tells me that I can be a fruit inspector. You know a tree by the fruit it bears. So the fruit that I'm seeing tells me, hey, this
may be some persimmons that I don't care.
There's a character flaw here, but I wish I had an answer for you. That perplexes me as well. Those of Christian faith tagging or hitching their wagon to the rhetoric he preaches, and it doesn't show any shades of Jesus to me.
And the contradictory thing about it is that you had another president prior to President Trump, one Barack H. Obama, who the evangelical community completely was turned off from, even though we're taught to love our neighbor, even though we're taught to do all these things. This is a young man that society and you and I, all of us who are black, right, who've been told, son, just go to school, do the best you can, and you can be anything you want to be. Then this young man out of Chicago becomes a community organizer, and he ascends to the highest office in the land, but yet those people out there decide that he's still not good enough. So I don't know, how do you've got a young son, I've got a son, I still tell him, son, you still can be anything you want to be. Now you might not bring everybody with you, but you can still be there.
Right. It puzzled me. I can reflect on, President Obama's campaign. And to your point, there are people who are referring to him as the Antichrist.
Yeah.
The Antichrist. To your point, where does affixing the title Antichrist to him, but overlooking the blatant, character flaws of our present president, and say it's based on Christianity, it baffles me. But as far as what we have to do as fathers of black boys who are growing up, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to pour in them and to help them identify their God-given talents, and to let them know that don't be afraid to be great. Don't be afraid to try. And as long as the good Lord is going to allow me to stay here on earth, Daddy is going to help you stand up if you ever get knocked down. But
that's what I tell mine all the time, Doc.
I said, baby,
you're mine and I'm yours. And that's just how it is, right? That's how we are with him up above. I want to get a couple things before we get out. We don't have much time, but I want to handicap this race, November 3rd. What do you think? I have already made predictions down the road. If you hadn't seen the shows, I ain't gonna tell you what it is right now, but What's your prediction after the 3rd of November? November 4th, we wake up and what do you have as the president? The same 45 or do you have a 46? What you got?
Man, DC.
Come on, step on out there. Now, this funky politics. I call all my people out. What you got?
No, it's not that I think it's going to be so close, and that's what scares me.
Wow,
that's what scares me. And
so the polls are not convinced you that you've seen. Rather, it's the Rasmussen, which has got the president by 1. It's the only poll that has him up by 1. The Marist poll, the Siena poll, the Quinnipiac poll, all of these polls, MSNBC poll, all of them have the current the past vice president up by at least 5 or 6. Yeah. And you're saying,
It's going to be super close. It's going to be super close. And I say that because maybe I'm a bit tainted because I live in a red state. I live in a red region. No matter, there is a unyielding allegiance to our current president. I mean,
George Bush didn't have it. And I don't know, and I'm talking about W. W was in office for 8 years, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but Bush did not have this kind of loyalty that I saw. I don't know where these people came from.
That's what baffles me, and that's what gives me my skepticism.
And that's what
we thought that it was going to be a layup for Hillary Clinton, and we see what happened there.
You got laid out.
The good thing is I don't think Biden is as polarizing as Hillary, and I never understood that, but that's for another show.
Yeah.
So my hope and prayer is that we could, as Americans, we can become more united, and I think that I'm almost confident that Biden can do that far better than what we're seeing now. But if you want me to say for certainty that that's going to happen, it's still a bit of me thinks that a lot of these people who may say, I've never voted for a Democrat, I'm going to do it the first time this time. Once they pull that curtain on election day, who knows what lever they're going to pull, and that's what
only them, God, and the machine knows, right?
That's why I'm saying that. So the good thing is, the thing that I'm praying that will happen is that there are no outside interference with our election process. The day after that, whoever wins is, truly our president, and that the other candidate, concedes to the votes, and that we don't drag this thing out for months and months, recounts, things of that nature. I think we've gone through a lot in 2020 as a country. Let's get that behind us and move forward. So I guess the best thing I can say right now, if you ask me, it's a coin flip. I'm pushing for Biden, but I'm not so certain that it's a layup for him either.
Wow. Well, that'll be the last word. Hey, look, man, Richard, man, I appreciate you stopping by the Funky Politics studio to talk to us about the Wilkes Wing Sauce. Hit me up again with where they can go to get online right now to go ahead and buy this sauce, because you don't just have one, you got several kinds of sauces they can go to, they can purchase and try them out and see what it's like. Hit me up with that, Doc.
www.wilkeswings.com. Wilkes is spelled Wilkes. Wilkeswings.com. We have sweet heat, lemon butter pepper, and a whiskey flavor sauce. They all are delicious.
Now, can you drink the whiskey flavored sauce without the wing? I'm like the brother that say, hey, man, give me the sauce without the chicken. Hey, man, next time I'm in Nashville, I'm going to look you in Bethany. We got to go somewhere and sit down and fellowship together. It's been a long time. I saw her at a luncheon that we were at together. Hadn't seen her in over probably 30 years and just was glad to see her.
Yes.
You look beautiful as she always has, and I know her mama same thing. So wish you well, Doc. We'll get you back on here one day real soon, okay?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
All right, my brother. Hey, we'll be right back with some closing thoughts here on Funky Politics. Funky Politics. Hey, Funky Politics fan, it is DC. What a week, what a month, what a year. 2020, y'all. Right, the information we give you here is always entertaining and it's always educational. And look, let me tell you something. We got more great shows coming your way. That's the weirdest stuff I've ever seen in my life. I don't even understand how do you do that. So make sure you stay tuned for more Funky Politics. Funky Politics, powered by the KUDZUKIAN Network. That's right, folks. We're funky sometimes. We funky your time. We funky all the time up in here. So make sure you stay tuned for more Funky Politics.
Check out all your KUDZUKIAN favorites now. Download the KUDZUKIAN app, available on Android and iOS.
Hey, folks, I got to get out of here. My producers tell me you've had too much time already. Look, thanks so much for being with us today. Richard Wilkes is the truth. He's the truth. He's Memphis. He's Orange Mound. Memphis. He's all of that. He's my brother. His wife's my sister. His family, man, they're wonderful people. Support your black business, be it local or national. Support these small businesses because I want to see the brother a millionaire times 25,000 so I can go over there and get me some free wing sauce because I supported him. But anyway, no. We support him because he's doing the right thing. He's mentoring. He's still keeping his faith, and he is working in this community, and that's what we all ought to do. But speaking of working, I got to get out of here, but I want to make sure that you do 2 or 3 things. Continue to mask up. Continue to social distance and continue washing those hands. We've got to stay apart to be together, okay? Stay apart to be together. See you next time right here on Funky Politics. I'm out of here.